Levy continues his tournament in New York City, which is his fourth tournament after he has made his return to the competitive chess to get the strongest title in chess, which is the Grandmaster title. And today he played in round 4 game against Kyron Griffith, a strong international master with about the same rating as Levy. So I would like to walk through some of the key moments that happened in the game. So as expected, the game was a Caracan because Chiron really likes to play the two knights variation after d5 and knight c3. The preparation was to play bishop g4, meet h3, with bishop takes on f3, queen takes on f3, and play knight f6. This was the surprise. Prepared for this particular game, something that Levy hadn't quite played before. And here after g3, the idea was to play e5, get a powerful center, and then white would have to figure out how to combat it. Obviously, it feels that e takes on d5 could be a critical move because white has the bishops here and should be opening up the position. But again, for example, after c takes on d5, bishop g2, you really need to, again, calculate things precisely because black gets a powerful center. I'm talking about moves like e4, queen e2, knight c6, and that's why Chiron here felt that this is not so clear, and he decided not to go here. So he played bishop g2 here, and Levy responded with d4. Now, maybe the difference here, I should explain you that immediately the move e5 is a bit risky because white can play e5. The point is, after d takes on c3, e takes on f6, c takes on b2, let's say white can sacrifice the pawn, play bishop b2, e takes on f6, long castle, followed by bishop d3. And actually this is a very promising position to white. Two bishops, semi-open position, and probably a chance to organize a direct attack at the king set. So what happened here is that after e5, bishop g2, now black can play d4 because white no longer has this e5 move, knight e1. Knight d1 might feel strange to you, but Chiron's idea was to play d3, queen e2, f4, and the knight joins the game through the f2 square. So Levy played the correct move, knight a6, sometimes hinting at ideas like knight b4 and d3 hitting the pawn on c2. Show castle happened here, knight c5 is the correct move, d3. Again, the only thing I quite didn't like is that Levy is burning here too much time. And after a longer think, okay, this was still pretty decent, he played h5. I really liked this idea because he was threatening to play h4. So let's say if white was carrying out his idea and he would be playing queen e2 and f4, Levy could play h4. And now the point is h takes, f takes, and knight h5, or even knight h5 immediately is a very nice idea, applying some pressure. And if white plays g4, then after knight e6, black simply controls these dark squares. For example, f4, e takes and f4, bishop f4, takes, and now something like queen c7, put the bishop on d5, knight e7, and this bishop on g2 is pretty bad. The knight on d1 also doesn't appear to be doing much. So that's why white had to play h4. Here Levy played queen d7, that's a move I didn't really like it. I thought that Levy had to play bishop e7, and my idea was that after bishop e7 here, if white would have continued with the move queen e2, I wanted to play knight e7 and then threaten with g5 and maybe castle long. So if white will play f4 here, then black can actually take it. After g takes and f4, this costs white the pawn on f4. And after bishop takes and f4, here black will play knight e6, maybe threaten take on f4, play knight e5, g5, and again go for a long castle. So maybe the downside of this move of the immediate bishop e7 is that white could have played something like bishop h3 and slow down black's possibilities to castle long. But again, I mean, black could still play knight e7 and push g5, and then opt for this king set attack. Now Levy played queen d7. I quite did not like this move here. So the point here is that Chiron played queen e2, a long castle, and king h2. Now, a very interesting psychological moment happened here. So after king h2, Levy played very quickly knight g4 check, king h1, and apparently white seemed to be threatening with bishop h3 and f3, exploit this long diagonal. So Levy spent quite some time, like 3 minutes, he played knight f6 to clarify white's intentions. White played king h2, knight g4, and king h1. And actually, all of this led Levy to believe that white wants to play a draw. So Levy burned here quite a lot of time here, thinking about his choices, should he accept a draw or not, and after a longer think, he decided to do it. He played knight f6. Actually, he had a better move. He could have continued with the move knight e6, immediately closing this diagonal. Now, for example, the point is after bishop h3 here. He can play, I believe it was f6. Offered to sacrifice the pawn, which is pretty dangerous for white because this opens up the g-file. Think about moves like g5, bishop d6 feels pretty risky for white. And if white doesn't do it, if white goes, for example, let's say f3 and knight h6, then Levy can fire up things at the king side with g5, maybe king b8 at some point, walk away from the spin and simply have the better position. So he did not understand this, that knight e6 is such a powerful move, and instead he played knight f6, probably expecting that now after king h2, white is gonna fix a draw. However, Griffith had different thoughts because he had lured Levy into believing that there's going to be trap of repetition. After king h2, the position would repeat 3 times, and he played very quickly f3. So the outcome of this is Levy had spent 20 minutes for thinking about repeating the position 3 times, which didn't happen, and the game basically started from scratch, and Levy had burned 20 minutes for no good reason. So he played bishop d6, he started to play faster, king b8 and queen e7, these are really good moves. c3, white was attempting to open up things at the queen side. Knight a6 was a good move. Bishop e6, queen e6, c takes, e takes. So the game was about balanced, and black was thinking about starting this potential kingside attack at some point with g5. White played king g2, knight e5 was a good move. Obviously, white could take on d5 because the queen is hanging. Here, white played correct move, knight h3. f6 was a good move here. Okay, maybe here Levy could have played bishop c7 immediately. With the following idea. For example, if white here plays a 4, there's always the possible idea to sacrifice the pawn with knight e3. Knight e3, bishop e3, d takes on e3. Let's say if white takes it, you play bishop b6, put the bishop on d4, and then double the rooks at the d-file with some very nice counterplay. Now Levy played f6, which was also a pretty decent move. And now the point is after f4, he had to work a bit about his opponent's plans that white wants to play f5 and knight f4. So that's why here the precise move was g6, stopping white's f5 idea. And if white does play f5, then Levy could take it and then use the open g-file to generate counterplay against a weakened white king. So here after g6, let's say if white would have played queen f3, here I think actually Engine likes some slower moves like knight e7, c5, and knight c6 keeps things a level. But actually, I quite like this move knight e3 here. After bishop e3, d takes on e3, queen e3, black will play bishop c7, think about bishop b6, double the rooks, and if the knight from h3 for white goes away, there's always the g5 push to rip apart the king side. I mean, Engine gives here some advantage to white, the very non-obvious move f5, so I thought that Levy could spicy up things with this move. Levy instead played bishop c7, and now after f5, things started to look suddenly very unpleasant. Knight f4, white is jumping in with the knight on e6 or g6, so this trade is necessary at some point. First, Levy included rook e8, rook f2, white is threatened to take on d5, knight f4, bishop f4, queen a5. White already is better, but black is holding on. Here, white played queen d2. Levy decided not to trade the queens, which maybe in retrospect was the mistake. So after the queen takes, let's say rook takes, it was probably still within the balance. Let's say rook takes, bishop takes on d4, g takes on d4, plays something like rook g8 and g6. Black is actually doing pretty much all right. Levy decided to reject the queen trade, which probably was not the correct move. Rook c1, and now a very critical moment of the game. Bishop e5. I believe this was a huge positional mistake by Levy. What he didn't really quite realize that he was playing really a passive chess, and he should have focused on where's his counterplay. So the correct move here was still bishop takes on f4, and if white really plays g takes on f4, which I believe was the original idea by white, because white is thinking about moves like king h2, double the rooks at the g-file, and generate some counterplay against the pawn on g7. Now black just plays rook g8, g6, and is doing really great. So most likely after bishop takes on f4, here Karen would have played queen f4, and I mean, black is slightly worse, but not by a great margin. Queen c7 or king a8 seems to be pretty okay for black. So instead, Levy played bishop e5, and from here, Caron is playing really impressive chess. Caron played rook c4, starting to hit the pawn on d4. Levy played rook e7, b4, queen d8, and very strong move bishop e5. Now the point is rook e5 is met by queen b2, the pawn on d4 is dropping. Maybe actually this had to be done. Instead, Levy took the pawn on e5, and now after rook c5, queen d6, queen g5, the sad truth is black is very solid, but he has no counterplay whatsoever. So black cannot take on g5 because this would create massive problems at the king side. King h3, king h4 is incoming, and all these white pawns are storming forward. So Levy was attempting to set up some kind of a defense, but he was simply running out of good moves. At the same time, Griffith was increasing the pressure. Rook b5, queen a6. Levy really did his best, tried to change something. He played rook e8 and attempted somehow to trick his opponent here to confuse him with many opportunities. So here already, after a couple of forcing moves, Griffith traded the rooks and won a pawn. And here I really like the plan that Levy did. After being in a completely hopeless position, he attempted to complicate matters, charged with the king forward, hoping that white is going to misplay this position and miscalculate how to checkmate the black king, which was a very nice practical idea. So for example, here, if I would play queen b2, rook c2, suddenly the game is not so clear. Now white played queen b1, which is a very smart move, threatening with rook a2 and try to checkmate. Unfortunately, there were some lines like, let's say, if you go rook c2, which seems to be a pretty good idea, white can actually play king f2 with queen e1 checkmate, and the king actually is a critical piece to win the game for white. So Levy played queen c6 instead, rook a2 check. He attempted to sacrifice the queen, which is a very nice idea. Here after king b5, he was kind of hoping that white's going to take on c6, b takes on c6, and then somehow push forward those pawns. Objectively, black, of course, is dead lost, but with 2 pawns and the rook, maybe there's a hope. But here Griffith correctly estimated that the attack is simply stronger. He avoided winning the queen and delivered a mate on the board. So it's a pretty terrible start, not to say the least, for Levy so far in New York tournament. Another loss, third loss in 4 rounds. This effectively marks his, by far, the worst tournament since the return to the competitive chess. In 4 rounds, he has made only 1 draw, suffered 3 losses. But also at the same time, he has played against some of the strongest players so far in the tournament. Griffith is leading the tournament, 3.5 points out of 4. Also early in the tournament, he was playing against other co-leaders. James Chirilov and Mark Paragua, they have both 3 points out of 4. Also, the strongest seeded player of the tournament, Jurabek Amrakolov. So it is what it is. Levy is not playing the best chess so far. So right now, he really needs to find a way to turn around the way the tournament has been progressing for him and try to make some changes. Now, naturally, he no longer can get the GM norm in this tournament because this would require 7 points out of 9. Now it's all about to regain the confidence, finally play a good game because this game was pretty bad for Levy, and try to regain some of the lost rating points. So thank you for watching this. In case you like the video, my recaps, please leave a like. Also subscribe to my channel where I will be posting recaps about Levy's games and also maybe some of the insights in our training process. Thank you for watching.